Hello, we're here today with Colin Minto, the Global Head of Resourcing for G4S. He's just spoke at our event, HR Strikes Back, and now we're going to discuss just a little bit more in depth about the kind of things that you do there.
Excellent.
So, obviously you're in charge of the entire recruitment process. So, starting at the beginning really, employer brand. What do you guys do to make sure that your company is somewhere that people want to work?
Okay, great question. The interesting thing about employer brand, it's a good debate because a lot of people think you can create an employer brand, but of course a brand is something that is developed over time. It's a perception of you as a business and your business performance, you as an employer and you as a recruiter. So what we need to do is make sure we get the basics right and we provide the best candidate experience, the best employment experience. So certainly with regards to our recruitment experience, we have a front-end career centre with a database. It's constantly communicating with our candidates. We encourage and champion excellence within our recruitment processes to make sure that people are spoken to on a regular basis. They feel like they're treated as an individual in that process. And equally, we have just spoken about this. We crunch a lot of data from a lot of surveys from candidates about our process and our performance throughout that process, their motivations, aspirations. So we tailor it accordingly so it provides a good end-to-end process that people will hopefully go on record about when they're talking socially, either offline or online, and then that is really what forms people's perceptions. With regards to employer brand, obviously it's down to what our employees think about their opportunities of working with us. It's whether we live up to the deal that we offer them when they join the business. Do we keep them engaged? Do we look after them? Do we focus on the key things that are going to support them to do their role effectively? And that resonates through into the employer brand. What you can obviously then do is when you pick up those stories and you pull those stories out of your employees, you can then articulate them. You can then use them to promote them out to a much wider audience and a global audience. To really be honest about your organisation and attract the people that are interested in those types of roles and want to do the things that we are publishing and promoting across our career centre. So it's a really interesting, very large question. Yeah. It's not something you create, it's something that is developed over time and you can influence it in a number of different ways. But I think one of the best ways of ensuring that we provide a great experience and our brand is actually absolutely as high as it can be is doing the right things at the right time, getting the basics right and doing a great job as an employer and also as a recruiter.
And as an employer, you employ what, over 600,000?
618,000.
618,000. That's no small number. And so with that, I can imagine a few, issues arise. And is it difficult for you to spot talent gaps and to identify where you need talent and things like that globally?
I don't think it's difficult. I think it's easier when you're in a bigger business because our service, our solutions are all about people. If we haven't got people, which are our product in the main, then obviously gaps are going to be very, very, very quickly highlighted. As an organisation, we recruit about 200,000 people a year. So it's in our DNA, it's in our makeup to continually recruit. Our operational landscape has a responsibility to make sure we've got the right amount of people in the business to service candidate requirements. So I think at that level it's quite easy to understand where we need the right volumes of people and where potential gaps form. And a lot of our businesses we would over-recruit because we know we have a level of sickness and an absence from the organisation. When we're in the functional, the management and C-suite, the executive suite, you really start to notice gaps in capability when your strategy changes. So same principle applies with our management suite, general operations, business as usual. We need to make sure we've got robust functional teams to service the operational delivery of the organisation. When you go through transformational change, which we are presently, new CEO, new CFO, new CIO joining the business, a number of executives joining the organisation, when we start looking in different directions in terms of strategy, you then realise that you maybe need to increase capability and you need to fill some of those talent gaps because you're going in a different direction. So I think it's quite straightforward in a large business, as long as you're an engaged business. And what I think we do very well is HR is very much part of the equation. So as the business strategy changes, HR are part of that. They're forming it, they're shaping it along with the other executive, and that helps us to understand and anticipate where we might need to focus our attention to bring in leadership, country management, functional leadership, etc.
And I guess having a very new board and bringing in employees, and generally, obviously, you recruit often. How do you maintain a consistent culture across the world?
It's about living our values. There's a very, very strong value stream throughout G4S. And lots of cultural differences, lots of cultural nuances, but I regularly say whenever I travel around the world and sit and meet my colleagues, you don't actually feel like you've gone outside of the last place you were in. It feels very, very similar. And that's because we embed the values into the organisation. When people join the business, it really depends on the business unit, the level of the role that people are joining, but we make sure at our operational level that there's great training, because training delivers excellent service to our customers. We make sure that we engage regularly with our employees. We ensure that everybody throughout the business is given a 1 year appraisal, so that makes sure that we're giving our employees an opportunity to feed back and for us to give them updates on how the business is progressing. So it's about keeping those touch points, it's about regular communication, it's about ingraining the values in the organisation, it's making sure that people are continually developed, feel part of the organisation and feel like they have a steer in the way the organisation moves forward.
And I guess tying in with development in that sense, how do you recruit people internally? So, moving people within your organisation.
It's a really core focus of G4S because it's, in our opinion, so valuable to retain intellectual property. It's a fast-paced services sector environment that we operate within, and if we lose our workers, we would lose them to a competitor in the main. So it's obviously critical to retain our best people and retain that intellectual property in the organisation. So how do we do that? We have an absolute focus for internal mobility. We have various schemes to ensure that our internal employees are given access to internal role opportunities ahead of external candidates. So our career centre has got a separate gateway that our employees register through, and that means that they see the internal only advertised roles and the external candidates don't get to see those roles. So there's a focus on making sure that they're given the opportunity and get sight of those roles and get not necessarily preferential treatment, but preferential access, because obviously it's good to bring different opinions and different headcount into an organisation, but wherever possible to move people through the organisation and backfill is a lot easier and a lot more cost effective for an organisation to recruit. And we have a specific scheme that I'm working with our colleagues in the US at the moment called the Promote Me community-based functionality within our career centre, where that builds, let's call it a LinkedIn group environment for our employees that have signposted that they want to move internally, so they get access to learning, knowledge, people to talk to, and the job opportunities, as well as the career centre job opportunities that are flagged up. And all of our jobs are matched to our database. So if an internal candidate is registered with our database and a role goes live, if they're the right match for that role, they're going to get an email from the system saying there's a role. But equally, our hiring managers get an email suggesting candidates that are suitable for that role. And internal candidates are very clearly identified in the career centre with a big I for internal. So there's an absolute core focus on that.
And I guess sort of looking at external hires, you mentioned sort of a LinkedIn type environment that you have internally. social networking, you know, a lot of companies are saying it's the future, but in your presentation today, you said that you're actually finding it's not as I guess as a greater, as effective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I talked about data and I talked about crunching numbers, and when you look at the data, you can see that the more traditional methods of attracting candidate flow through search engine optimization, through job boards, are leading to the largest volumes and the largest volumes of hiring. That's not to say that social isn't important, because it adds an extra dimension to your approach. So I see social more of a way that people research our organisation. Interestingly, on our original Facebook offering, which again I spoke about, which has, for long periods of time has been the #1 recognised and successful Facebook environment on the web. We generally recognised that job content wasn't that interesting to the audience.
Yeah.
So we had a whole section where our jobs were listed. It was the least visited environment. They're not interested in that. They're interested to find out about G4S. Who are we? Who are the types of people that work for us? What are the opportunities? So they can make a judgment call as to whether they want to apply for roles or not. So that kind of subliminal engagement area, which warms them up to maybe want to apply for a role, we might then find they'll apply for us. Not necessarily linking from the social environments, but coming back at a latter stage through a job board, through the search engines, and or directly to our sites. So I think it's a very, very big influence. And what I always say with social, with all the channels coming through, you can't discount any of them. What you need to do is embrace them and use them, test them, and work out, again, using data and crunching the numbers, which ones are effective and for what purpose. So we've never relaxed down on our approach to social media. As things change and as things develop, then there's always a place for it, and there might be a bigger place for it. Equally, though, we use LinkedIn a lot for our management and executive hiring, and that is probably our largest contributor of hires, and you could call that social media.
Yeah.
So let's stop talking about social maybe, and let's call it media, because it's a part of, I would say, an integrated approach to attracting talent, and it's right in some circumstances. It's not necessarily as effective, but it brings other values, which could be that decision-making opportunity for a candidate to decide, actually, yeah, this is a business I want to work for.
And I guess an organisation as big as yourselves, you must get inundated with applications, and you said you recruit sort of 200,000 a year, which means, you know, in terms of applications, I'm sure the number is much higher.
Millions,
there you go. And so how, from your side of things, do you ensure that you're getting the right candidate for G4S?
We start our thinking around this at the very early stage. So what we want to do, and what we do, I think, very well, is articulate the roles from the people that are doing those roles at our career centre stage. Because what we want to portray is a very realistic appraisal of what it's like to do particular roles within G4S, because that will help people to self-select. They'll opt in or they'll opt out. If we say that everything's shiny and rosy and we get an extra million applicants, that's not necessarily the smartest way of recruiting. I'd much rather people say that they're not actually interested to apply for a role because it's not actually what they're aspiring to do. It's not really what they're looking for, because we've done them a good service. And given them a good experience, because we've informed them. So I think it needs to start at that very, very early stage. As you then take people through the recruitment process, they need to feel that they're being treated fairly, equitably, very professionally. And we have a lot of filtering questions, we have applicant tracking solutions, and you obviously need to be careful on how you structure those and configure those so that you provide a great experience, but at the same time manage people's expectations and allow the best talent to flow through to the latter stages of the process. And during that recruitment process, with our interviewing, with our questioning, that's absolutely critical for us. I spoke in the conference about one of the areas that is coming out in our survey of areas of attention, which is giving people feedback and regular updates. That's arguably the hardest part of recruitment when you have an automated recruitment process because of the volumes. But my concern is that if people aren't being spoken to on a regular occasion, they might then find a job elsewhere because we haven't spoken to them. We might want to hire them, but we haven't got back to them. I'm not saying this is what we do inside out on a regular basis, but it is an area that is a key focus for us. So I think you've got to engage with people, you've got to manage your expectations, you've got to give them a realistic appraisal at the very front end, and do everything right throughout that recruitment process, and that leads to success.
And I guess finally, once you've had a successful recruitment process and you decide on who you're hiring, what comes with the onboarding for you guys? What do you do to ensure a successful onboarding process?
Familiarization of the business. We've got lots of training, especially for our operational frontline workers, because training is what's going to orientate them for their procedures. We make sure that there are on-site training and familiarisation activities, so that when they go to site with a client, they get to meet the client, they get to meet the teams they're working with. We have buddy schemes so that people are not thrown in and left alone. We do everything we can to integrate people into the business and give them as much as they possibly need to be successful, because without them being successful, the business isn't successful. So these things, they don't form their own individual agenda. It's just part of what we do. It's part of our end-to-end service. Our business relies on people. People are our product. Going back to your original question, how do we make sure we've got enough of that product? We've got to make sure that product is effective. Those individuals are trained. They know how to deliver excellence in terms of service, and it's absolutely pivotal for us to do that for business success. So, as I said, it's not something we would specifically take out and think, let's analyse that, are we doing a great job? It's just part of our service levels that we provide to clients.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, and also for speaking at our event. It was a tremendous success, and thank you.
Excellent, thanks very much.